Howdy, folks. Welcome back to the Now That We're a Family podcast. Today, Katie and I are going to be discussing whether or not we think you should start a business and become an entrepreneur. For context, Katie and I have a bias. We were both brought up by successful entrepreneurial fathers. We are from large families. I was one of 10 children. Katie was the oldest of 11 children. Our mothers homeschooled us, and we were able to experience, because of the hard work of both our mother and our father, a life that was very family-centric, and they were able to create a culture in our homes that induced a lot of fruitfulness in regards to Christian faith and Christian attributes. We love our siblings. Our siblings are all Christians. They're marrying godly people, and we certainly want that to be the case for our children. And so that's where we're coming to this from. We've also started multiple businesses on our own since being married. Entrepreneurialism was something that we connected on very early on in our dating relationship, and it's continued to be a common thread in our throughout our marriage. And so we love entrepreneurialism. We do want our children to be equipped to be entrepreneurs. That said, we're not here to say that everyone should be an entrepreneur, and we'll tell you why here in a second.
The Now That We're a Family podcast.
Okay, so when we were going into this episode, it is going to be for those who are looking to start a business on the side, maybe looking for how to do that, how to add entrepreneurialism to what you're already doing so you can increase this time freedom. And I would say too, this would be beneficial for someone who's looking to instill entrepreneurialism in your children, because if you have done it, then it was going to be a lot easier to help disciple them through that process in a landscape that is constantly changing with AI and all those, different things. We don't know what the financial landscape is going to look like economically in the next, couple decades. So that said, I think entrepreneurialism is a great tool to have in your toolkit, starting in your own home and then as something to teach to your children. But this isn't for some people.
Yeah, and what we're also not going to speak to is personal finance. I think sometimes there's some confusion around what's entrepreneurialism, what's not entrepreneurialism, what's running a business, what's working for somebody else's business. Personal finance is a whole other category, right? Dave Ramsey or Jim Salmon or a bunch of people that are way better at speaking to that than we are, speak on it. And so you can listen to them. And we're also not talking about whether or not you should develop a particular skill set, or you should develop particular skill sets and capabilities in your children, or pursue certain education. And I say that to say, a lot of times entrepreneurs get pitted against educated people, or educated people get pitted against entrepreneurs. And when I say educated people, I mean kind of the conventional college route where you get a college degree or you get, a graduate degree. And as an example, I've been able to go to Strategic Coach for a few years. It's quarterly coaching started by Dan Sullivan. My father-in-law, Katie's father, is a coach for Strategic Coach. And in these quarterly workshops, which are full of high-level entrepreneurs, you get to meet a wide array of backgrounds, right? People that come from different backgrounds, from PhD level academics to never graduated high school academics. And what we all have in common is we're trying to run and operate businesses in a successful way, and they started businesses.
And I think when you say successful, these are usually multi-million-dollar businesses. In order to be in the room, you have to be having a substantial personal salary, and so that your business needs to be very successful in terms of credibility. So this isn't. So we're saying there's just this wide swath in this category. These aren't like hobby horse businesses. These are very large scale.
Yes, and we're not going to speak to whether or not you should go blue collar or white collar. Maybe you've got, you want to work with your hands, or you'd rather work with your mind. That entrepreneurs fit all of those, right? Mm-hmm. And yet one of them doesn't necessarily lend more to entrepreneurialism than the other. Like it really is across the board. And so, whatever you have for academic background, whatever you want to pour into your children for academics, that's your thing, right? And that's not what we're speaking to here. Whether or not you want to work with your hands, or you don't want to work with your hands, you want to work online, you don't want to work online, that's up to you. We're just talking about starting and running your own business and whether or not it's something that you should pursue. I think a huge thing that led my father into starting a business was his priorities. And I think that everybody needs to establish what their priorities are, their value system. And my dad was a Christian first and foremost, and his Christian faith informed him that marriage was the most important earthly relationship that he had. And I stand by that as well. And then once his marriage blessed him with children, he felt extremely convicted that as a Christian husband that now has children, they were his responsibility, and it was his duty to provide sufficiently for them in a very physical way, as well as spiritually and emotionally and mentally, and have a stable home environment. So those were things that were put in place. And so when he was kind of directed towards owning his own businesses, it wasn't what a lot of these, I guess, like business stories, when you hear these stories of Elon Musk or when you hear stories of Thomas Edison that are so inspirational, they really had this like desire to change the world through their creations, right? Through their inventions. And that is good. Like if you're raising a Thomas Edison, that's awesome. And that's good for the world. And we want Christian inventors and creators. But that wasn't my dad. My dad wanted to solve the problem of providing sufficiently for his children and for his wife, but also he wanted it to be in a way that provided him time with his children, right? Because it's one thing if you, and he was willing to do this, but he didn't want to work 100 hours a week and be away from his family 100 hours a week to provide physically for them. He wanted to provide well for them, but also be with them and enjoy relationship with them. And I don't know if it was similar with your dad, but I know that was kind of the foundation to my dad's entrepreneurialism. And it's certainly what informed and inspired me to become entrepreneurial. It was for a lot of those same reasons.
Yeah, it's funny looking back. I don't know why my dad became an entrepreneur. Like I know he tried the fire service. He became a firefighter paramedic. That didn't work. He went into personal finance as a financial advisor. Didn't like that. He did so many different things. I think he suffered a little bit from what we do, which is shiny object syndrome, and that everything looked exciting and he was very capable and he could do a lot of things. I think he wanted to be in the capacity that he is now, which is speaking and being in front of people. And he would have been like an OG YouTuber if that had been the thing.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like he wanted a platform, but like, how do you get that? Is kind of tricky, especially, a couple decades ago. So it's kind of interesting to see he married my mom, who's incredibly entrepreneurial. I would actually say my mom is even more entrepreneurial in the strict sense of the word than my dad. And that she was, going out and painting people's curbs red in front of their homes in Fullerton, California at 10 years old to pay for her clothing. So she was on her own at a very young age in terms of providing for herself. She came from a family of 12 and was, just still is the ultimate like door-to-door salesman, belly-to-belly sales that just, stresses me out, stresses a lot of people out.
If she's buying something, she always asks if they'll take less than the listed price. Yeah,
she barters. I mean, we stopped by someone's house. We had 6 kids at the time. We were living in a tent in a trailer. She stops by someone's house. It's like, they have a mistletoe tree. So she knocks on the door, asks if we can cut their mistletoe. And the guy's like, sure. So we go home with all these trash bags of mistletoe, and then she cuts it up and we all sold it during the Christmas season. So she just, she literally saw money growing on trees and was very much the bootstrap entrepreneur. I'd say my dad really thrives at the culture and coaching and leading teams of people element of entrepreneurialism. So the funny thing is they never did a business together. I would say aside from their children, I guess that was really the fruit of their marriage. And I'm really grateful that my mom was so clear to stay in that lane whenever my dad tried to pull her into things. That said, there is a time to really help your husband out in entrepreneurial endeavors, I think. We've seen this go well, we've seen this go poorly, and that could be another episode if you're looking to support your husband in entrepreneurialism. But anyways, I do think there are some things that are important to keep in mind when you're trying to decide whether to be an entrepreneur or not, or start on these ventures in your family, because as much as the sky's the limit and we hear touted the freedom and the flexibility of entrepreneurialism, growing up in entrepreneurial circles, Elisha and I saw a lot of starving families, like literally struggling bare minimum families, because the dad was so committed to not having a boss and to his freedom without the skill set, unfortunately, of making something work, that he was going to be committed to trying to do something on his own or bust. And I think that both you and my father and your father didn't have those, like they did have their priorities. And so basically, if they couldn't provide for their family in these ways, they were willing to go out and have a boss. And both of our parents did that at certain, both of our fathers did that at periods of time. And I really admire that. And I think that's something to keep a eye out for. If you have a lot of children and you can't provide for them with the entrepreneurial endeavor, one, I would encourage, don't go out and just throw all your eggs in that basket, like really hobby horse it for a period of time to get something off the ground. If you already have a family, but also because you just don't want them to feel that risk and that stress. But also some people are going to make more money and be happier not being entrepreneurs. And I do think entrepreneurialism is not for everybody. So there's some ways that you can kind of rule out whether or not you're an entrepreneur or not. Because some people that I'm friends with, I think they're very tortured entrepreneurs. Where I'm like, if you just like did the go back to school route, like you could earn more money and be happier going to your boss, checking out at the end of the day and calling it a good day, than torturing yourself with this need for intrinsic motivation when you have none.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great self-evaluation exercise to go through. And if you're not able to identify it on your own, it's seeking counsel from other people, because personality type does play into this. And of course, you'll probably be able to find every personality type that's succeeded as an entrepreneur, but I do think some personalities lend more to it than others. And backing up real quick, Katie Babe, to that scenario where the father, for the sake of pursuing freedom or not wanting to be under a boss, is neglecting his family. That's why I think it is crucial that we establish a Christian worldview, because this pursuit of freedom, it can become an idol, because we actually, as Christians, aren't free in the sense that we have no authority ever. We are bound to Christ. We're called slaves to Christ, and we are owned by God, and we are to come under His reign of authority that is current right now. And you can be pursuing freedom, but if you're neglecting the calling of being a provider for your husband and for your wife, you're failing as a Christian, and you actually still are under God's authority, and you're rebelling against His authority if you're doing that. So I totally relate to that desire to not have to answer to an earthly boss, right? Like I am one of those guys that has been fortunate enough to have most of my professional career be working for myself rather than working for someone else. However, and I'm not trying to clout some moral high ground. I think I was always very willing to go work under a boss.
And you did for several years of our marriage.
Yeah. And it's not like, I had the worst bosses or anything like that, but I did have to work in suboptimal work environments for numerous years early on in our marriage because of the necessity to provide. And I just would, I guess, encourage and really put that on men and the leaders of their home, where yes, it's good to want to work yourself out of an ideal work environment or to look for alternatives to that. But you can't, just for the sake of discomfort or of, not enjoying it enough, or you not being passionate about your current job, say, well, I'm going to bail on this and go start my dream business. If it's not if that's not providing sufficiently for your family, then you are failing. And again, I think that the whole pursuit of freedom is a really I think there's a lot of false narratives around that, because as Christian men, what we think of, what we get told as being this total freedom is we never get that as men. That's not
you're
good.
Duty bound.
Yeah, you're always duty bound. You're always duty bound as a
Mm-hmm.
Christian. And so I think acknowledging that is good.
Yeah, and I'm really grateful for that, for how you have always worked really hard to provide and striven for the ideal, but you haven't compromised one or the other. And I'm grateful for that. Some things to really keep in mind, I think, when looking at, okay, who would be a good entrepreneur and who wouldn't? And I say this not as the ultimate judge, but it's pretty close. No, I'm kidding. Just growing up, I just saw so many successful entrepreneurs and so many failed entrepreneurs. And now as an entrepreneur, we get to talk to a lot of people who want to start businesses, or who are trying to, or who are successful. And you start to pick up common traits. I think one of them is, if you're a very contented person, entrepreneurialism might not be the best for you, because you're going to be, again, pretty content. You kind of have to have a bee in your bonnet to be able to do the really annoying things that entrepreneurialism is going to require of you. And again, you're your own boss, which sounds really nice, but you have to be harder on yourself than an actual boss would be. So you have to push yourself further than a boss would. I like to joke that Elisha and I work, 5 to 9 instead of 9 to 5. And that's really actually very true. And I think that you have to be willing to do that. And so I think, a little litmus test is if you set goals for yourself, getting up early in the morning. There are entrepreneurs that are, night owls, super late night owls. That's when they get all their work done. But they're doing that at the expense of doing what other night owls do, right? Which is hanging out with people. So you have to be able to, like, if you can't set a goal to get up early in the morning and do that for months at a time, then maybe this isn't the best for you, because you're going to have to do the equivalent at some point. In entrepreneurialism. And I'm using that as an example because I think it's a really easy thing to test. Like, if you can't force yourself to do something for the sake of just because you committed to yourself and you're going to do it, then it's going to be hard for you to do that when it comes to finances.
Yeah. And something that I would tag on to that, and maybe this could be a whole other point, but is if you're not, say, if you've got a business idea or you've got some passion project that you want to have be your business, if you're not already pursuing it on some level alongside your full-time job, quitting your full-time job won't make you pursue that anymore. If you're working 40, 50, 60 hours a week, and you're not just finding 20 minutes here or 30 minutes there to buy the domain or start building your landing page, or, look into different lease, if it's a, bricks and mortar, or, look at what the lease options are. Like, if you're not already doing that preliminary kind of groundwork to the business, that's not just going to start happening once you quit your job, right? If it's something that you're actually going to follow through with, you will be doing it when the kids are in bed. You'll be getting up early to do it while they're still in bed. You'll be doing the whole moonlighting thing. And that's another good litmus test is like, are you already doing it? Like, are you already doing the thing in the time that you have available, or are you making more time available for the sake of doing this thing? Because this is from personal experience.
Yeah.
Where we thought, oh, great, we'll quit this. We've got this much in savings. We're going to quit. So then we'll be able to pour all of our time. I'm going to be able to pour all my time into building this business. It doesn't work that way. I actually got more done when I went back to work, and you have this, I guess, compressed time frames each day where you're thinking, okay, I know I'm working from these hours to these hours. I've got 40 minutes in the morning and I've got an hour at night before bed. You will get way more done if it's something that you truly are going to pursue in those timeframes.
Yeah, I would say if you're a new entrepreneur, especially, because you don't necessarily know where your time should be going as much as you think you do. I remember talking to a really seasoned entrepreneur who was saying, I just need 300 grand. If I could just raise 300 grand, I know exactly where I'd put it. And Elisha and I, we both got in the car. And this is when we had a few, Boberg Music Academy was started. And we literally sat in the car and we're like, I don't know what we'd do if we got $300,000 for Voteberg Music Academy. Would we buy marketing? Would we make the website look better? Would we try to get, hire teachers?
Nicer cameras, rent out a studio?
Yeah, we would be so scared right now to have $300,000 because we'd blow it. And then what? We owe this debt load back. And what did we do with it? We couldn't guarantee that where we would invest it would grow the business by that much.
Yes.
And so it's kind of like that with your time. Like, if you're a new entrepreneur, you don't necessarily know, if I got all this time, where would I invest it wisely? Sometimes we only knew, we knew what we could do for 4 hours a day, which is we could record lessons for Voteberg Music Academy and post Facebook posts at the time.
Yes.
And so really when Elisha freed up more of his time, we didn't know what to do with the rest of that time.
Yeah. Using that example is really good. I don't think I've heard you use that example of, if you were given, if somebody wanted to invest in your business and they gave you $300,000 or $500,000, do you even know where it would go? Like, do you have an allotted place for each one of those things? And using that example, you and I both did not know where the money would go. It's like it would go towards our living, it's like it'd go towards rent, or it'd go towards groceries, or we'd buy a house. But when it comes to the business, it's like we don't know where it would go. But then the same thing goes for our time. That's a really good comparison, Katie, because that is something that we have experienced, right? We've never experienced having an influx of $300,000 that we're supposed to invest into our business, but we have experienced quitting a job and having an influx of time that we had intended to infuse into our business and having no clue what to do with that time.
Yeah. So that kind of goes into a point where if you're starting out entrepreneurialism for the first time, I wouldn't encourage you to take a business loan. And I know this goes against probably like every actual business advice out there, right? Because debt is a good thing to leverage. But when you're raising a family, and that's going to put so much pressure on your marriage, on this business, and on your kids, and you can't really guarantee a return. It's different. Again, like, if you've been in business before, or if you have a very successful business coach that's walking you through step by step, like, okay, a lot of money here, here, and here. We know these ads have this return, all those things. Then okay, go for that. But I think a lot of new companies, they just think we just need money, and then they waste all the money. And we've seen this happen a lot. And then you need more money, and then you need more money. And one of the things I should just say, I'm so grateful we did, is just earn a little money, put that money in the business, earn a little more money, put that money in the business, and just bootstrap it yourself. I just think with big risk comes big reward, but it also comes big relational issues if it all goes south.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because if you are aspiring to be a Silicon Valley startup that is able to, I guess, exit as a billionaire in 8 years or something, then it's all risk, right? It's just all risk. But that's not who we're looking at as inspirations for our life. That's, again, going back to the value system. The entrepreneurialism, we wanted it to fund our family. We wanted it to fund what we felt the Lord had called us to, which was being invested in our children, being able to be a big part of their education in homeschooling and a musical development and so on and so forth. Their faith, their spiritual nourishment.
And community. And
being a part of our community.
Hospitality, stuff like that.
And so when you read biographies of highly successful business entrepreneurs, you want to pull out principles that you can apply to your life, but they need to come through your filter of your value system. Because what oftentimes is adjacent to successful entrepreneurs that are billionaires or that have changed industries and they've been total disruptors is, divorces and children that have gone astray, or children that are totally alienated from them. And there's no way we didn't want to have anything to do with that. It's like there was no price, there was no money amount that would be worth, compromising in our marriage or failing as parents. And so that's why I think that principle, going back to that bootstrapping, I think is good advice. And that's why we would do that over and over and over again each time. Even though now, knowing what we know, it's like, had somebody given us money or, invested, given, if they had invested early on, now we know what to do with it, right?
Yeah.
10 years later,
totally different. Yes.
10 years later, it's like, we know where we could.
Same with time.
Unlimited
amounts of time.
What we built in 10 years, we could probably do in a year now if somebody gave us money because of what we know. That said, I still am glad because we went the route that we went, because we mitigated a lot of stress and angst because we, avoided debt and we just bootstrapped and built it as we could go.
Yeah. So you can avoid stress and risk and all those things. So yeah, I guess because we're speaking to young families on this podcast, it's not like young men that are like 20 years old and are like, hey, sure, risk it.
Exactly.
Shoot your shot.
Exactly.
You give it all you've got. And build up that experience before starting a family. That's great. But if you have a family and you have all these dependents relying on you and your sanity and your clarity and your provision, I just think, and your marriage, because I think it's wonderful when a wife supports, but there has to be this balance and in the family for the sake of the kids, how much the wife can be involved. And we've seen this, again, go really well and also go really poorly, where the kids get the short end of the stick. And so we never wanted that to happen in our home. So anyways, just like summarizing these points, just making sure that when you're moving forward, you're an entrepreneur or the type that it's going to work for you to some extent. If you're already working on this in your free time, if you're using the money you have right now to invest in it, use all the resources you have right now to throw at this thing. That would be my encouragement to just start, and if you aren't spending every free second of your day working on this and instead you're chilling, then get a 9 to 5, work real hard and then chill. Because as a true blue entrepreneur, you don't chill a lot. You never really feel like you can.
Yeah, and depending on your personality,
you have to really force the rest.
You might not be able to be a very good parent or spouse while you're an entrepreneur.
Yes.
It might be hard for you. And one of your cousins, who's an awesome friend and somebody we really admire and respect, was entrepreneurial for a while and got married, started having kids, was just stressed out, and he was doing fine, as far as the business was making money. And I think he got counseled maybe even by your dad or somebody. I don't know who he got counseled by. It's like, well, you don't need to do this. And he ended up going back to nursing school and is now a nurse. And he's like, this is the most freedom I've felt. You know, I thought entrepreneurialism was going to be my path to freedom. And now being a nurse and being able to have this schedule that I can plan my family life, plan around my family life, and it's dependable, right? And it's consistent. My wife loves it. They homeschool their children, and they've got, quite a few children that they're homeschooling. I think that's something to keep in mind, is that it's not all, again, we love it. And so it might sound like, okay, we're being hypocritical here. But
no, yeah, I would encourage it.
Yeah, I think it's
but I just
awesome.
say be honest.
Exactly.
Be honest. Like, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of time. It's a lifestyle. Entrepreneurialism truly is a lifestyle. It's like you eat, sleep, and breathe entrepreneurialism. So do you love it?
Yeah.
That's when you're going to be successful at it. If you don't just love it, and that's not what you want to do for your hobby and your spare time and your Saturdays, and it's not what you want to talk to your wife about on date nights, and you know what I mean? Then like another career might be happier.
Yes.
And then the other thing too is knowing like, okay, if you go back to school, can you get a 6-figure job that way easier than you could grow a 6-figure business in your, with a personal salary of 6 figures?
Right.
Because frankly, that's also something to keep in mind. Entrepreneurialism is not always the fastest way. Just because there's no cap on your income,
Right.
It doesn't mean that, there's a lot of people really struggling to earn, 20 grand a year in entrepreneurialism, where it's like, if you just went back to school,
Sure.
you could increase your earning easier.
Yeah, or got some other credential.
Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah, whether
A
it's
welding
academics-
credential,
yes.
I'm saying school loosely, like a
Right.
trade school,
Right.
a whatever.
Yeah, and that's, I think, something to keep in mind too. If you're looking for more time freedom, if you're looking for more bandwidth to pour into your children, I think those are good things. And I think some jobs actually provide. I was talking to a friend the other day, or this was a few months back now, and they're pregnant with their second, and he has a job that's a great job, I think, but he was frustrated, and he was saying he really wants to start his own business. And it's funny because I was asking him more about his work, and it's what you said. He makes, $100,000, which is hard. It's hard to build a business to make you $100,000 right there.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's like, well, that's actually pretty good, right? He was able to buy a house as a young married guy that they're kind of renovating. They got their second child. He gets paternity leave, right? He gets like 6 weeks off a year. And I'm like, 6 weeks off is
Like, we have zero time off,
Well, that's
ever.
never happened in our entire marriage.
No.
Ever. Like
No.
in 1 year, like maybe 6 weeks in our whole marriage. And,
No,
and
we never
love,
get-
we
yeah,
love what we do.
anytime.
The last thing I'm doing is complaining. I wouldn't have it
love
any
it.
other way. But as far as like time, we do what we love, but we don't have time off either. Right.
Because when you have time off, you're still staying on top of things, even when we do take, 4 days off or 5 days off. And then you batch on the front end and you batch on the back end.
Yeah.
The team's still running, so you're never just like, hey, I'm out of office. Don't call me.
And just for the record, I honestly think I'm the luckiest guy alive. Like I love my life and my job. That's not what I'm saying.
Well,
I wouldn't trade with anyone at all. Right
if
here.
we could say, hey, everyone could have the blessing that we're able to experience right now, I would say do it. But I think what's hard is we just need to be honest if that's going to be a possibility, because some people have greater strengths in other areas. And all I'm saying is this isn't the only way to have a strength.
Yes.
It's the same with like network marketing. We did network marketing. We were actually very successful in network marketing. But we stopped telling people to do network marketing because after a year or two of us in it, we started realizing, oh, wow, other people have greater strengths. They could build other businesses better and faster than this, even though it worked for us.
Yeah, and it worked for a lot of people that we know. Like
Yes.
it's not. We didn't stop telling everyone they should do network marketing. There are
No,
some
but
people
we
that are
started-
great at it, and
I'm saying
it's not for everyone though.
People need to be honest.
Exactly.
You need to be honest with yourself. Is this the best route? Because there are multiple ways to get to where you maybe want to go with your family.
Exactly.
That's all I'm saying.
Yes, and going back to this friend that I was talking to, because a couple more things, just to consider if you do have a steady job that aren't guaranteed or they're not guaranteed at all, like they don't exist, and that's time off, right? Like that's not guaranteed at all. It's something that you really have to work towards and create. Consistent income is obviously not guaranteed, right? So if you've got a salary, you've got paid time off. And then another thing is medical insurance, we've never once had that in a job, right? Or in a business. You don't. So I think there are some things that people maybe. I'm not saying that this is our listeners, but there is something you have to count the cost if you're going to go walk away from a job that has those things, because they aren't there once you start your own business and you're doing your own thing. And so again, this is us coming, we're total advocates of entrepreneurialism. I feel like we just we're trying to turn people off from it. I think we just want people to go in with their eyes open.
Yeah. I want you to be successful in entrepreneurialism is what I want. And so I'm like, hey, just think of these things, do what you can, build your lifeboat, get in the lifeboat, don't just sink the ship or burn the ship, burn the bridges, and just launch into it and then be drowning.
Yes.
That's what I'm trying to be hey, just build it on the side. And when you're ready, get into it. You don't have to have this big risk, big reward moment. I think we really slowly built things over time. It took 5 years before we were fully able to get in the boat. It's been wonderful, but even though it was still a bumpy ride, it wasn't make or break at any point in our marriage.
Yeah. And I'm going to say one more thing, that before you think entrepreneurialism is the only route, because maybe what you're passionate about, because passion is a cool thing to pursue, right? So I spoke to my dad, who he wasn't pursuing industries that he was passionate about: the timber industry, the coffee industry, real estates. These were all things, the Christmas tree industry. The industries that he got into as an entrepreneur, it's not because he wanted to change the world through those industries, or he just felt this passion for any of those particular industries. He saw them as being a vehicle to provide what he was passionate about. That said, if there is a particular thing you are passionate about, and you're I just want to, equip young men to be able to fill in the blank, right? To, go out and preach the gospel, or to be godly husbands. And so I want to build a business around that. I mean, that could be awesome, right? I'm not saying don't do that, but there are awesome jobs that can allow you to do that. There are awesome volunteer opportunities that can allow you to do that. And so I think that looking if there's a way to scratch the itch, or at least pursue that passion, that doesn't require you risking it all, so to speak, then I think you can pursue that as well. If that makes sense, finding either, or a job that, a job that actually can do that as well. Where I just want to help people, or I want to inspire people. It's well, there's a lot of jobs that allow you to do that.
Yeah. Or do it on the side, host events on the side, start a podcast, we did the podcast for 6 years or something before it started being a profitable business. It was just something we did in our evenings when we had time.
Yes.
So I think that there's things like that too, where it's it was really fun for us and we couldn't quantify, is this growing anything? Is this worthwhile? No, but we just liked our connection with you guys, and it was great. It wasn't earning us any money. It was a money pit, but it was a worthwhile one for us. So I think that's kind of a litmus test too. If you're doing it anyways, then you really like it enough to really stick with it and try to monetize it. A great resource that I think is out there for if you want to start a business is Jeremy Pryor's course. And we'll link it down below. I was just looking it up before this episode. On the Get It All Done Club, we have a monthly live, and there was almost every time I do a live, I get questions about starting businesses, right? We get them a lot here on the podcast too. So if you're looking into starting a business that is service-based or online-based, that's a great resource because Jeremy walks you through actually setting up the business, taking care of all the legal stuff, trying to figure out what is best suited to you. Because I think sometimes our minds immediately launch to online business, where maybe you could have a great service-based business too. Depending on your skill set or
your network,
community. Even how you want your home life to be, do you want to be on technology a lot? Do you not want to be on technology a lot? Those things can play in. You could also often earn a lot more in service-based businesses up front. Garnering an audience, I put that in air quotes, that takes time. And that just might not instantly happen.
Yes.
I know for us, it took a lot of time.
Yeah. I haven't looked into that program for a while, but I'm really glad you brought it up because I remember being really excited about it. And if I remember correctly, he kind of breaks down the 3 phases of earning that you want to pursue, and which I think is really helpful. And that first one is replacing your current income. right? Like replacing your current job and building it before you bail on your current job. Like he really establishes the reality of that. And the second one being, I forget what he calls it. He's got terms for each one of these. The second one being where it's a little bit of a longer tail. So you've got that immediate needs, like you need to pay the bills right now, right? And then you've got this like 3 to 5 year thing that you're working towards building. And that can be in the same industry, kind of like what you're building towards, or it can be that, like what you talked about, online business that you maybe want to be able to scale at some point. And then there's a third phase, and that's like generational wealth, where you're able to invest in long-term assets, right? Real estate or, retirement plans and stuff like that. And so I really like that he breaks the things down practically in those categories.
Yeah, I think that's phenomenal. So anyways, I think that's a great resource. If you're looking for practical hands-on support, go check that out. He'll hold your hand walking you through the program. We haven't done the program, but we are friends with people who have done the program, and it's been amazing. They have been able to quit their jobs and go into entrepreneurialism. It's been better for their families. So I do think that there's a great gift there. And I think it can give you a lot of shortcuts to identifying, hey, is this product worth selling? Is it not worth selling? I think sometimes as entrepreneurs, we can kind of be, there's like 2 ditches to fall in. One is getting investor money and blowing it and just kind of like, I'm going to earn tons of money. I'll just blow this money. And the other is being so tight-fisted, wanting to just bootstrap everything ourselves and not get any support. One of the best things we did early on is we spent $6,000, which was a ton at the time. And we invested in a program with coaching to help us work on online businesses. And that was just super stressful for us to make that investment, but it was so worthwhile. And it's the same with, there have been multiple years where we spent a good chunk of savings into your coaching. And it really does help just skip a lot of the errors you can fall into.
Yes.
Just thinking, I have a great idea. That is something. Talk about in terms of ideas, this is kind of tricky, but because you want to protect your confidence, and also talking about your idea is not the same as doing your idea. So it feels very productive to talk about your business, but unless you're actually it's not working on your business, talking about your business.
Yeah.
But that said, there's some people who keep things so under wraps. It's like, I'm going to just have this big launch one day, and it's like, someone could have told you that wasn't going to work out.
Right.
So talking to the right people and getting good advice can be really helpful, but don't just tell everybody and their mother's brother about your, what you're starting too, because it can make you feel like, wow, I really got a lot done today. And it's like, well,
Yeah, you don't want to be delusional, but you want to protect your confidence. That's what, your dad says that strategic coach, entrepreneurs' number one priority is protect their confidence.
We've destroyed our confidence and been delusional multiple times.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyways.
It's
a great pursuit.
It is a great pursuit. Yeah. And we want more Christian entrepreneurs.
Yes.
We really do. I think it is a phenomenal thing to pursue as a married couple, as the head of your home, with your children, getting them thinking in that frame of mind. Excuse me, man. Sorry, I've got a burp there.
Just having our kids think in a value versus a time economy. It's like, how much value can you add this hour? Not if you just, waste through this hour, then you still get the same amount. I think things like that are just helpful for raising driven individuals. But I do think being realistic and that entrepreneurship is best for self-driven individuals, and anyone can become that way.
Yes.
But I would become that way before launching the business versus having the business be that driver for you to become a self-disciplined person.
Yes. That's a good way to put it.
Okay. Hopefully that was helpful, you guys.
Yeah. We'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.